All right, so this week we're starting the second part of the two-part series with Richard Cortes, the leader of FOTW, a former Messianic pastor who converted to Judaism and is now leading a Torah education center in Sholo, Arizona. Be sure to tune in and afterwards make sure to like and subscribe and follow on all channels that we are available everywhere that you podcast. And please follow on Spotify and YouTube, join the Facebook group and join the discussion, and subscribe to the blog and subscribe at JesusTheJewWithinJudaism.com. Make sure you plug in, make comments, and get involved. I look forward to hearing from you guys and enjoy this episode. Thank you for tuning in to the Pulling the Threads podcast.
So the people that ended up staying in here, I advised them that me and my wife were planning on converting. But that was just me and my wife. FOTW would, again, at that point, I really didn't know where FOTW was going to play a role. I honestly, I didn't know. These questions are hard to answer because I'm going moment by moment. I kid you not. Every day, I have no idea whether we were coming or we were going. For a whole year, we were almost that way, where I didn't even know. I thought I was going to close the doors. To be honest with you, I said we're going to just shut house and I'm just going to move to Phoenix and I'm going to go join the Chabad. That's it. And my life will be so much easier. I don't have to deal with this nonsense. But the people that were here, the people that remained, really wanted to continue learning. And so it took us a while. It took us a while to kind of figure out what was the role of FOTW. And it wasn't until like maybe 4 or 5 months ago that we realized what the role was. And it was to become a platform here in the mountain. Not necessarily a shul, because I couldn't call myself a shul. I wasn't a convert at that time. It's a different order. You see what I mean? Like I cannot call myself a rabbi anymore or more, you know what I mean, or a pastor. I'm definitely not a pastor, you know what I mean? So I was trying to figure out where's my role now. Like, I went from being up here in the Messianic movement, and now I switch orders and I'm back in the bottom. But I have a congregation still. So it was very conflicting, very confusing at this very moment. And it was at that time that we decided that my wife and I decided that we were going to convert. And so I spoke to the Chabad in Scottsdale. And the leader there, Yossi Levertov, we had a really good conversation, I
was involved with the Chabad of East Valley for a little bit. I attended the one down there. I didn't go to the one in Scottsdale, but
Scottsdale is pretty small, actually. I've never been to the one in East Valley. Well, most of these Chabads are very small either way. But what's interesting is in this conversation, he gave me Michael Skobach's number. So I try to call Michael Skobach, and of course, Michael Skobach is a rabbi. He's from Outreach Judaism, but he's out of Canada, and he's always traveling all over the world. But he's more like a Kiruv rabbi, and I think that at this point, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna continue looking in Phoenix to find out where and how we can do this, because that's the problem. It's Chabad really doesn't know what to do with people when it comes to conversion, especially with goyim. I mean, their main focus is Jews who are gone astray, and they're trying to bring them back in. But they really don't like to deal with Gentiles for the most part. So that was kind of like a shot there. So I ended up finding Ortzion, and Ortzion had. I'm sorry, let me rewind. I ended up finding online AJU, which is American Jewish University, is out of California, actually.
Yeah,
I think they're in LA. And they are very, very reputable.
Thought about going there.
Yeah, they're very reputable organization, actually. A university. You can go there for your undergraduate in rabbinic studies. So AJU had a Kiruv conversion program, and that it was online. So that was another thing. I couldn't leave this place. I'm married to this place, especially now. I cannot leave. And they were the ones that actually introduced me to Ortzion, because one of the sponsoring rabbis in there was Rabbi Green from Ortzion. And I was really excited. Okay, great. So I can do something online. It's still traditional. They still adhere to oral law and all that kind of good stuff. And anyway, I was liking what I was hearing so far. And contact Orzion, and the rabbi was really, really amazing, really good. And that's how this process started. So in the process of the conversion and building that relation with Rabbi Green, that's when he helped me to land this place logistically. Like, what am I? I can't be a shul. I don't qualify for a shul. So what am I? And that's when he suggested, you got a really good calling up there. You need to be a platform in the mountain to welcome people from, first of all, Jews who are out there who are not observant, for one, and for Noahites who are coming out of the church and they need a place to come. So why don't you make it a learning center? There will be a learning center where a Beit Midrash, basically, and more of a platform to invite those who are from different walks of Judaism, basically, and for those who are not observant. And that ended up being a blessing, I gotta tell you. We ended up finding who we are. I had to end up changing all my paperwork. I had to contact my attorneys. I had to change our name and under our government because we are a legal entity. Had to do all that mess, pay all the fees for that again. It was crazy. It's been a tough year doing this whole transition. And so we became officially, FOTW became a Torah learning center, no longer a Messianic synagogue or anything like that. And so during that process of doing this, of us going through the conversion, I was sharing with everybody in here the things that I was learning in AJU. And I was introducing it in our Torah portion as well. So people were really moved by what we were doing and what we were learning, and they were, asking and inquiring about experience so far and everything and whatnot. And little by little, just families started coming up to and say, "Hey, Richard, we want to convert. How do we do it?" It was just amazing, Jeremiah, because it really revealed our position. It's to facilitate, because you probably can testify to this. When you're coming out of the Messianic movement or out of the church, it doesn't matter. Coming into Judaism can be a very, very scary and intimidating process, because you don't know. That's the whole thing. You don't. There's so much.
Once you get it, though, it's very refreshing.
Oh yeah, once you get it.
So like, I don't know what your experience in Christianity was, but you came from Assemblies of God. So do you remember, like, basically worship service was a concert, the preaching, the altar calls, the gifts of spirit. It's this very performative thing.
Right.
The beauty of a traditional Torah service, there is no performance, there is no instrumentation. It's not, a performance to make me feel good. It's literally an offering where you're giving to God something that's beautiful.
Right.
I found that a quiet service without instrumentation, where I'm praying these ancient prayers that are being prayed around the world for thousands of years, to be a beautiful thing, versus I'm dancing and shouting and people falling out and all that kind of wild stuff.
Yeah, the concert, basically.
Yeah.
In the pony show, essentially.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the experience and what we were experiencing in here, and just the families were really moved by it, I guess. And little by little, we just start getting different families asking, how do we convert? Because we're afraid. Again, because if you're coming at, most of these people come back from an evangelical background. So coming to Judaism can be, again, it can be intimidating because you don't know. If you don't know, it can be intimidating because you got the whole saying, the rabbis turn you down, all these different things. The Jews are really, they're not friendly, so all this imaginary things that they're in people's mind, they're wonders in people's mind. They're afraid of the rejection. So we became somewhat of, again, a platform and an anchor to where they can, okay, we got a lead now. We got these people that we know. They got a foot in. Oh, we definitely want to know, because we love to, but we're afraid, basically. So little by little, just families just started coming up to us and saying, we wanna convert. Now, here's the interesting thing. I got a family that was watching us from Utah, the state of Utah. They ended up moving from Utah to this region right here. just to come and join us, to be a part of this, and the whole entire family converted with us as well. So that's how it was really, really amazing. It was just like miracles. The people, I was just getting phone calls from different people and saying, hey, we heard that you're converting, and what is that like? That was the questions that I was getting. What is that like? You know, did they turn you down? Did they turn you down? Did they do this? Did they do that? And I said, you know, there's some elements of that is true. It wasn't easy. Coming to Judaism wasn't necessarily like, hey, sure, come on in. I mean, there was a little bit of a resistance, nothing like orthodoxy, but there was some resistance still, at least where I came from. It was a bit of, okay, well, we're going to test you out and see if what you made of, sort of to speak, even though they didn't overtly said that, but you could see it. So it took about probably 6 months or so for AJU and Rabbi Green to really be more open to me. Now, here's the caveat with that too. So at this moment in Phoenix, and I'm probably sure you heard of this, Phoenix is going through a lockdown in conversions during this time because of the scandal that took place at Chabad with the missionaries that went undercover as Chabad leaders. And I don't know if you heard of that. That was a big scandal in Phoenix about 6 months to a year ago.
Wait,
And
missionaries went undercover as leaders of Chabad?
oh yeah, they were
wow.
they were dressed like Hasidims. It was one guy with his son. They were doing Brit Milah. I mean, it's crazy. You know what these guys were doing? These guys were converting people they wanted to convert. They were charging $30,000. They were pocketing the money.
Wow.
And these are missionaries. May I remind you? That's the whole thing. They're missionary. They were just trying to convert these people. So it's crazy. So anyway, Phoenix they got caught. Chabad got them. They got caught. So now every Jewish assembly, every Jewish synagogue in Phoenix is in lockdown, high alert, because now they think that everybody that's trying to come into the doors is a what? A missionary. So I was coming in during that time, which was very difficult, is what I'm trying to tell you. So it took a little bit for them to open up and for me to show them that I was genuine, that I was not trying to missionize anybody. So during that time was a little bit tougher. So, but yeah, it all worked out. We ended up proving ourselves, of course, and that's when more families started saying, you know what, we like what we're hearing. We want to be a part of what this is. We want to, even though I was telling people you don't have to convert, you can remain a Noahide if you want, but they wanted this. And it was just basically our walk, what we were teaching, how we were walking. Another thing that I was doing is that right after Shabbos service, I was doing some Musar teachings. And Musar was really amazing. I think Musar really did a lot of it. They loved the Musar. They loved and they were all being challenged with Musar, character building. And I started bringing literatures from, like the outpouring of the soul. It's one of them. And a lot of the Musar groups and that are obviously Orthodox, but it was just like, wow, it was life-giving. So every week we will meet, people will come and they will share their experience. Hey, I was challenged this week with this or that. And I was reading what you were teaching on the Musar book, and I put it to practice. And guess what, Richard? This is amazing. I'm actually getting answers. We have marriages that were falling apart here. They ended up being restored. And we were not even doing that intentionally. That's the funny thing about it. It's not like, okay, we sit down and have a marriage council. We're just sitting, teaching Musar. And they're listening to this, and they're like, whoa, they're putting it to practice. So much of this was, not much, all of it was Hashem. It's just the whole thing. People just became in love with Judaism. And they said, you know what? We want to go on board with you. We want to follow what you're doing. We see the validity in what you're doing. We see the changes that it's making in our lives. And we see the changes that it's making on you, they said. And they just all jumped the wagon. They said, we want to come and we want to be part of the nation. So that's really how that kind of evolved. It just started with classes, and after classes, after Shabbos, like I said, we will gather, we would do classes, and really just doing the classes and showing the emes of these classes and the emes of the Torah, the emes of Tanakh, really all of that did it in essence.
Well, amazing journey, amazing story. So did you go to the mikveh in Scottsdale for your part of your conversion?
Yeah, yeah, we
So
did
that
that.
I went there, and me and my son went to the mikveh because my son, when we went through conversion, it was right before Rosh Hashanah 2014. It was
Oh
a
wow,
beautiful experience going to the mikveh with my son, and him, because he did Hatafat Dam Brit, and
right, right,
both of us, we completed our, everything for conversion and the mikveh and everything. And so, yeah, we went to the mikveh there in Scottsdale. It was a beautiful experience to be able to do that with my son.
oh,
Beautiful experience. Like, I mean, I'll
absolutely,
treasure that forever, Um,
absolutely,
amazing experience. Um, yeah, wow. So Musar is a beautiful tradition, though. New Shul, the synagogue I was going to when I was going through conversion, we did Musar. Um, definitely love the ethical aspects, the
right.
meditative practices. It's a beautiful practice that adds a lot of value that I feel like I carry with me and constantly try to be in that kind of state. So
Right,
that's a
right.
beautiful thing.
It
Um,
challenges you. It really challenges you,
yeah.
in a very positive way. Um, and I love the practice of hitbodedut as well, which Musar connects us with hitbodedut, and it's in Jewish, that in Jewish prayers we got keva, which is our prayers are fixed prayers, of course, they're orderly prayers.
Mm.
Hitbodedut kind of breaks that cycle of keva, and now you go from keva to kind of kavanah. And in the kavanah and hitbodedut, you really connect with Hakadosh Baruch Hu at a very, very personal level, and it really helps you refocus and challenge really the things that are within you. So my wife right now is actually training as a TMI for a Musar Institute right now,
Wow. Okay. Cool.
to become
That's
a
cool.
facilitator for Musar. That's how valuable, and it's changed her. I mean, the change in here has just been amazing, Jeremiah. The change has just been surreal. We hear, and for so many years in Christianity, both in Christianity and Messianic Judaism, we were trying to find the change. How can we change? How can we change? And it wasn't until we came to Judaism and found Musar, that really it just speaks to your soul, and it challenges you again in a very positive way. And I really believe that it deepens um, your connection with Hakadosh Baruch Hu. But as a Jew, it really, really solidifies and identifies more really what the role of a Jew is.
Mm.
It just really, really brings it to the surface. So it's been a blessing for all of us in here.
All right. So, when did you guys complete your conversion, and when did the members of your congregation convert? Like, when did that happen?
So actually, our official conversion took place right before the month of Elul, the
Okay.
beginning of Elul.
That's a good time.
A very good time, a
Yeah.
very, very good time. And we did it as a group together. That's what's so beautiful. We all decided let's do it together as a group, because my wife and I were already in that process, but we actually waited. We ended up finishing our program,
Mm.
and we waited for the group to finish their program so that we can all do this together. Like, I could have converted probably 6 months ago,
Mm.
but I postponed my conversion so that I can do it with the group. And I'm glad that I did. It was very, very emotional, needless to say, for
Mm.
all of us. That
Well,
was a
welcome to the
very
tribe. Welcome to the family, and Mazel
100%.
Tov to you and uh all you guys up there in Sholo. That's amazing. I mean, that's a beautiful experience. I mean, you got to do it with the group of people. For me, it was doing it with my son.
Right.
It's something I'll treasure forever. It's a beautiful thing.
Oh, absolutely.
So, now that you're here, I mean, it's a new year, Rosh Hashanah started, last Rosh Hashanah. So full year you've transitioned here. I'm gonna want to check in, next Rosh Hashanah and see what it's been like since, between now and then. Um,
Right.
but quite the experience. So how do you look at, I want to ask you a couple things about, so you were in the Assemblies of God,
Right.
which means they believe in the gifts of the Spirit, speaking in tongues,
Right.
apostles and prophets.
Right.
How do you make sense of, I mean, you saw people speaking in tongues, people
Right.
laying on of hands, claiming there was healing. Um, yeah, I've never seen a true miracle with any of the laying on of hands, maybe psychosomatic healing,
Right.
but how do you make sense of that fervent belief that there's spiritual gifts, albeit in the context of intense worship experiences, intense altar calls,
Right.
human driven action? But what do you make sense of your experience there looking back now?
Wow. Well, to be honest with you, even though I was involved in the Assemblies of God, that was one of the things that I always had an issue with, to be honest with you. Theologically speaking, I never saw eye to eye when it came to that. Only because even back then, I remember being surrounded by people who were quote unquote receiving the gift of the Spirit. And I always been a very logical person. Like I like to hear logic. Logic is a big part of who I am. So I would ask them, what was your experience when you were speaking in tongues? And what were you saying, by the way? And of course, the answer that they gave me was just wasn't satisfactory. So it was, a lot of them tell me that they didn't know what they were speaking. So I was like, well, that to me was a problem because you're supposed to know what you're saying. You could be cursing God. Even Paul said that, by the way. So I never felt comfortable around it. Never really believed in it, even with the healing and everything. That was just one of those things that I. That's why, as a matter of fact, we ended up leaving the Assemblies of God and went to Southern Baptists for that reason. Now the Southern Baptists are completely opposite. They don't believe in none of this nonsense. And that's where I felt more at home, so to speak, only because I didn't have to deal with that. But Southern Baptists, of course, has their own issues as well. Um, but that to affirm to you, I never felt comfortable, which is the reason why I left it. We ended up going Southern Baptist, and within the Southern Baptist Association, of course, theologically, again, this is what I was in my search. Like I knew I didn't fit in Christianity. And I knew that when I felt when I was young was absolutely true, because now as an adult and looking at this in a more objective way and be more open, more receptive to listening to what they have to say and logically hear what they have to say, it still did not sit well with my neshama. And, point being taken is that, that's what Hashem used to get me out of it, and bring me into Messianic. As crazy as that sounds, bring me to the Messianics to lead me
As
to
a
where
transitional point, like, trying
Yeah,
to bring you through. Now,
right,
as a Jew, like all of our souls were at Mount Sinai.
right,
Mount Sinai is the giving of the law. So my big question with all the spirit stuff within Christianity is, why do people filled with the Spirit not compelled to follow the laws of God? If
right,
it's the Spirit of God,
right.
why do they live lives in contradiction to the laws of God?
Absolutely.
Therefore, what kind of spirit are they being filled with is the big question for me.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
it doesn't seem to fully track. You mentioned on something, the anti-Jew, that I'm going to kind of touch on, the anti-Judaism of the New Testament
Right,
actually manifests as anti-Semitism at its core.
right,
Now, within the Messianic movement, they try to say eschew replacement theology, yet they say you're a completed Jew if you're in Jesus, which is replacement theology.
oh,
I
absolutely.
do not accept their convoluted way of saying, "Oh, we don't believe in replacement theology, but you're
Right,
not a completed Jew unless you believe in Jesus."
right,
But they're telling Gentiles who are, a lot of times they're telling this to Gentiles who are playing dress up. I'll
right,
get there in a minute, but they're telling them that you have to, believe in Jesus to be a completed Jew,
right,
yet
right,
not offering conversion to those Gentiles. Now, I read
right,
a book, and the reason I said dress up, Rabbi Carol Harris Shapiro wrote a book on Messianic Judaism. She's like, I think she was Reformed rabbi.
Okay.
And she refers to most of the Messianic movement as Gentiles playing dress up or dressing up in the name of the cross to convert people.
Right.
I find very offensive. I mentioned that to Tovia Singer. It's very offensive. The Gentiles playing dress up. If you're studying Torah and you're dressing this way, if you believe it, then you should become a Jew and stop playing dress up.
Right.
I mean, it's like my thing.
Right.
But the anti-Judaism of the New Testament, all the places that were inserted into the text, I say inserted because it probably wasn't there originally, where it says statements about the Jews, condemning the Jews for somehow convincing the Roman government to crucify Jesus for wanting to be king of the Jews, like somehow putting that blame on the Jews is the foundation of Christian anti-Judaism, and it goes into Messianic Judaism.
Right.
The statement completed Jew is an anti-Judaism.
Oh.
It is anti-Semitism at its core. It is a disgusting statement, but it goes back to Jesus is everything. He replaces the Torah, therefore the Torah is no longer valid, though they say he told us to fulfill Torah. It's the most convoluted thing ever. I mean, how do you grapple with the anti-Judaism of the New Testament and its manifestations in Messianic Judaism?
Right. And well, it's very hard to grapple with that. And the problem I think with that is that, and I can't speak for other people. I can only speak from where I was at one point, is that it really becomes very subtle. Like a lot of these things, you really technically never pick up on it. Like for instance, how the New Testament obviously mischaracterizes the Jews. It's something that you start seeing once you come to Judaism. But if you're coming from Christianity, it's very subtle. You will never see it. And I don't really believe technically a lot of these people, personally, I don't think they see it. In other words, they're being taught how to hate Jews without them not knowing it. Yeah. That's the problem.
But they're told they're loving Israel and they're loving Jews while doing it, which is the most deceptive thing about it.
Yes, and that's really the scary part, is that a lot of these evangelicals really have no idea that the Christian Bible essentially it's teaching them how to hate. Now that statement right there, if I were to say that statement in a church today, I will be called, obviously a heretic, or this is sacrilege. We don't hate, we are people of love. But because it is so subtle, that's the danger. It's so subtle that you cannot see it. I know for me personally, I never saw it until I started digging more into Judaism. Then you can start picking up and stuff like that. But that's the dangerous part about it. And yes, they're supporters of Israel. We love Israel. We love the Jewish people. And that's the danger. You see, it's coming very, very in a very deceitful manner. So my heart goes out to them. I believe that in the time, I mean, we see this in the prophecies with, Zechariah and Jeremiah. Time is going to come and the Gentiles, the Goyim are going to awaken. They're going to see this. But it's so dangerous. And here's another thing with the Christian Bible too, which I testify for sure. What can you fish out of that? You got, for instance, and this is what I presented to the people in here. This is what's so complicating about it. So on the one hand, you have Yeshu saying that the Pharisees and the teachers, they sit in Moses' seat. Whatever they tell you to do, that they do. You know what I mean? But then in other gospels, it seems like he's calling them sons of devils, and you know what I mean? Like the narrative, it just doesn't flow. No. So it's one of those things where this is part of the reason why I stopped teaching it. People ask me, well, why don't you just teach the good stuff? I say, why would I want to teach the good stuff? What good stuff? And
just go to Torah. I mean, Torah is where you should go. Like,
absolutely. And not to mention, well, if I do that, then I'm going to be accused for handpicking what I want to hear from the gospel. You see, because now there's the flip side of that. And then let's not even talk about Paul. We're not even getting into Paul. But I mean, this is my point, is that it doesn't flow. So I I affirm with you. I generally believe that the church fathers inserted a lot of stuff in there. As a matter of fact, and you probably know this, the narrative and the, you got the synoptic gospel, you got the gospel of John. So in the gospel of John, which is the most popular scripture that you always going to hear in the church, and that is of the woman who gets caught committing adultery, which when you come to Torah, you start reading that and it makes no sense. So they take her out, right? You know the narrative. They bring her out, and of course here comes Yeshu comes to save her, and whoever is committing no sin may cast the first stone. Well, as it turns out, even Christian scholars today confer that none of that existed. None of that you're going to find the original Greek. It was all inserted afterwards.
No, Marcion invented that pericope, and it was inserted in 22 different places in the early manuscripts until they settled on where it's at now. So that was actually a parable invented by Marcion, who, by the way, the Gospel of John was first widely distributed by the Marcionite community, who Marcion wrote the first gospel and the first collection of Pauline epistles that he found. And after that, then we start having the epistles and gospels. So there's a whole lot of questions there.
Right.
Gospel of John was probably invented by the followers of Marcionite. And therefore, like that's just a fabrication. Just knock that one to the side. The synoptics have so many problems that you touched on.
Right.
But so
well, and you could see that. You could see it so clearly, in this particular passage, which makes perfect sense that Marcion would do this. You see, and again, it's very subtle. This is the subtle part. I never saw this, but what do we see there? The Jews are going to condemn this woman and kill her. And lo behold, now comes Jesus, the new covenant, and now he's gonna save her. You see, it's the Pharisees versus Jesus, and Jesus wins, by the way. You see, so this is the kind of stuff that, again, it's very subtle. Most people would never see it because they're focusing on the fact that she got saved. Now, you and I both know from a Torah perspective, this is completely mashugana. No Pharisee would have ever done that because you need witnesses. The witnesses are not even there. The guy that should come in. Again, there's so many. Obviously, whoever did this does not know Torah. This is the point, you see? So you know that this is completely shekel, is my point. So it's, again, this is where I see that why follow a book that is inconsistent? Why follow a book that contradicts itself, by the way? And yeah, this is one of the things that I started sharing with the group, and we starting to see, as a group, we starting to see a lot of these things that people never saw before. And again, that being right there, that part in the gospel. Who were to ever conclude that that's an anti-Semitic chapter right there? Like, if you were to read that, if you're in the church, you would never say, you know what? This chapter is teaching me how to hate the Jews. You would never pick that up. You would never pick that up when Pontius Pilate is trying to save Jesus and the Jews are trying to crucify him. You will never conclude that. But you see, again, it's all embedded in the story. So people become haters of Jews and haters of Judaism. There's no way you can possibly read the Christian Bible and have a love for the Jews. There's just no possible way. And this is really the problem that we're dealing with today. Most of these people who are anti-Semitic today, they're anti-Semitic because they have no idea that their own Bible is teaching them hate. And it's a big problem.
It's a huge problem. I mean, starting in 2016, 2015, there was a lot of synagogue shootings. I was on the security council at my synagogue. We've had to implement all kind of security protocols, fences, armed guards, a lot of things because of the current culture. I'm going to touch on this, that has based in Christian Zionism and evangelicalism,
right?
Which this, Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, but politically, the evangelical support of Christian Zionism has led to, the political statement that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, which for Jews is always We don't need a political party to tell us. It doesn't.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
irrelevant for us. It is the capital.
Right.
But within this movement, the problem of anti-Semitism within Christian Zionism, because of apocalypticism, they're praying for the demise of the Jews in this end time battle with Islam, because then Jesus will come. And so this is the thing about Christian Zionism. We love Israel. We support Israel. We want to, support the building of the third temple.
Right.
Yeah, but it's the story of like there's a guy at the top of the mountain and the rattlesnake is saying, "Take me down the mountain. It's freezing. I don't want to go down the mountain, but I won't bite you."
Right.
And he's saying like, "I'm your friend. I won't bite you." Eventually, he convinces the person to take him. They take him down. As soon as they put him down, boom, rattlesnake bites him. That's the thing of like, oh, they love Israel. But they don't love Israel for the sake of Israel. They love Israel for the sake of the end times battle where Jesus comes to save the Jews who are being slaughtered by Islam, according to their end time prophecy. And so their support of Christian Zionism and the politics behind it is there's embedded anti-Judaism in that you need Jesus and Jesus is going to save from this end time battle. It all comes back to the anti-Judaism in the New Testament. So I become uncomfortable with, well, we support Israel. Well, do you support Jews for Jews and Israel for, for Jewish people or Jewish means, or because you're looking for this end time battle? And, one of the things I've been talking to a professor in New Testament studies who is not a believer. He's into the historical critical method, about the concerns about stuff like Waco and within the Pentecostal movement, there's the Neo-Apostolic Reformation, a group of people who are politically involved because of they support Israel, but they also support Messianic Judaism because they want to convert Jews.
Right.
And it's anti-Judaism, and I have a huge problem with it. Oh, I mean, have you seen the dangers of the Christian Zionism or their anti-Semitic involvement?
Absolutely. I mean, when you look at, and for the most part, a good portion of the conservative evangelical movements, to add to what you're saying, the other aspect of this is also that serves the reason why they're trying to convert all these Jews is because this is going to bring back Jesus, essentially. They believe that we need to convert the Jews in order for Jesus to come back, which is why you have so many groups out there and so many missionaries in Israel today. Aside from the political aspect of, the Holy Land being the capital for the Jews, in their mind is we wanna speed up the second coming of Jesus, and in order to do that, we have to convert all these Jews, and this is unfortunately the stuff that Paul teaches in his letters as well. The tactics and the deception that they use, again, this is all advocated by Paul. I mean, Paul says in his letters that the gospel is to be preached in what? In pretense or truth. So it's again, it's got a bifold in here. You got the political aspect of it, but then you got the unfortunately also the prophetic side of it. And the prophetic side of it, in their mind, the prophetic side of it is we want to advance that. So you got these convoluted ideas from all these different evangelicals in Israel, and this is what's giving birth to this anti-Semitism. And it still comes back to, it's the Jews' fault at the end of the day, And by the way, we have now the medicine to fix them. And that is, we bring Jesus to them, and yeah, it's a mess. It's a complicated mess. It's something that I believe you can't stop what Tanakh said is going to happen. Now, here's the thing. Tanakh actually speaks the truth. You and I both know that. And we know that a time is going to come where they're going to say, we have inherited lies from our fathers. The Jews are not the ones that are going to be coming to the Christians saying we have inherited lies from our fathers. It's interesting. It says the Gentiles are the one. Jeremiah 16:19 says the nations will come, not the Jews.
Yeah.
So I find that very, very interesting. That one way, even as crazy as things are right now, and things are getting very, very heated, and I really believe, like many, even Tobias said it, many of the rabbis say, we're approaching that messianic age because of a lot of things that we've seen. The awakening for once of the nations coming. You know that the conversion rate in Israel right now is at the highest ever in history. As a matter of fact, they're turning down people right now because they can sustain them in these conversion programs. And most of these conversion programs come from evangelicals. So there's something very interesting that even though it's really confusing out there right now, and there's so many different voices that are taking place, we actually finding that there's a lot more evangelicals who are actually converting to Judaism than Jews converting to Christianity. So of course, Christians will never share those numbers, but
No.
you know what I mean? So they go and they'll go to Tel Aviv and they'll convert, they'll sit there and they'll convert an unbeliever, an atheist, for instance, who's never studied, by the way. I mean, these guys are not, these missionaries are not converting guys from the mirror, you know. But they don't share that with you. We don't look how many hundreds of Jews came and they converted, you know. Yeah, you go to Tel Aviv and you get all these people who never, who don't know Tanakh, they're going to convert, of course. But it's interesting, if you look at the conversion rate in Israel from the Christians who are becoming Jews, these guys are coming from seminary school. These guys are theologians. These guys who are studied. So the difference is you got ones who are coming and they're up, and the other ones who are turning and coming to Jesus at the lowest level. It's an interesting ratio there. So it's I believe it's all part of what Hashem is doing in these last days, and I think we're very fortunate to be a part of that, to have the eyes to see, you and I and many others who are doing the same. So, and now I think the advantage that for me personally, I think one of the advantage that we have is that we've been in that world. Even Nissim Black is a kirub, he's a convert.
Yeah.
And he comes from this world. He was once upon a time a Muslim. So he comes from this world as well, and we're at a platform. I think we are at a platform where we can reach the demographic right now, which the greater demographic here is goyim that are coming out of the church. Yeah. Living in a Jewish community, like for instance in an Orthodox community, you're so limited what you can do. You're stuck in the eruv basically, and your audience. Who's your audience in the eruv? Jews, account for less than 7% worldwide. So think about it. Most of the work is done right now. Most of the work, it's dealing with the goyims. It's dealing with the people who are coming out of the church. It's dealing with people who are coming out of Messianic Judaism. So I think that we find ourselves in a very unique position, is what I'm saying. Because now that we are in Judaism, we can be that voice for these people who otherwise will never come because the intimidation of Judaism. So I think
that's something I'm trying to do here. There's another Messianic pastor that has been on a few times, that former Messianic pastor. I was involved with I went to Bible college, was involved in ministry, was involved in the Messianic movement. I don't know. When you look at Christian origins and unbiased, the historical critical method,
right.
The history of Christianity invalidates Christianity if you look at it. Yeah. And the problem for Christianity is that Judaism still exists.
Oh yeah.
So the impetus to convert Jews is like this thing that is saying like we're just a man-made religion is a problem. So there is an impetus to like try to get that eyesore out. So that's why the missionaries try so hard.
Right. Yeah.
You mentioned Paul is the problem, and Paul said the thing that is the jux of the problem. I become a Jew to the Jew, right, and a Gentile to the Gentile. Therefore, right, you're neither authentically any. And the biggest problem with Messianic Judaism, the biggest problem is Jews pretending to be Jews to convert Jews, Gentiles pretending to be Jews to convert Jews. But there are the authentic, Gentiles who want to get back to the Jewish roots of Christianity. They need to go to Judaism, the source, you know, when you were young, you experienced a Jewish experience, and it was authentic.
Right.
Therefore, the inauthentic, you're able to compare that.
Absolutely.
But the idol Jesus makes it hard for it. You know, when I got married, I wanted a Jewish wedding and I wanted to raise my kids Jewish. I didn't want to raise a Messianic Jewish. I just didn't think my ex now, my wife at the time would have been okay with it. And so
Right.
as a means to appease, that's what I chose. Um, but I don't feel I was as attached to that, because for me, when I was a child, I had read the Tanakh twice through, read the New Testament once, but the Tanakh for me was like, okay, this makes sense. And then the New Testament, I was just like, there's a lot
Right.
of things that just doesn't gel. It contradicts. I need to
Right.
go back to this. And my problem always with when I was a Jehovah's Witness, when I was a Christian, when I was Messianic, I'm like, this doesn't jive with the Tanakh.
Right.
And so for me, you know, looking at the authentic, it was good that I had that experience first, because all this other stuff, it's like I felt like I had to go through it so that I could understand and answer the question.
Right. Right.
Um,
Right.
but you know, I try, you know, through my YouTube channel here and my blog, I'm trying to disseminate information to help people on the journey in the same path. You know, when I was in Messianic Judaism, my only understanding was like the original was Jewish.
Right.
Christians should get back to Judaism.
Right.
And
Right.
the more I realized Messianic Judaism wasn't that, I was like, well, I should be Jewish, and that's, you know, whether or not a person is a Noahide, or that's their personal choice. My
Right.
goal isn't to make
Right.
Christians Jewish.
Right.
Um, it's just to disseminate proper information.
Right.
You know, like Tovia Singer said, you know, proselytizing isn't necessarily a bad thing, because if you're giving good information, it's good. It's
Right.
the
Right.
deceptive tactics. It's playing dress up to convert. It's
Right.
the veiled anti-Judaism of a
Mhm.
completed Jew, the stuff like that.
Right.
Um, so looking back at your experience, to kind of summarize it, you know,
Mhm.
how do you look at all that now, and what would you tell your younger self, like
Mm.
your process?
Wow. Um, Looking back now, um, if I would have had this information, say 20 years ago, um, I will say probably, get in your car and squeal tires out of there as quick as you can. And that's for a refund. Um, and really in the most polite way. I want a refund back for all the tithing that I gave, and yeah, it's I often try not to think about that, only because I don't want to fall into anger, and it easily could happen. Easily you can become very very just bitter, only because all the years that you wasted, all the years that you come out of the church and you were deceived in the church, right? You come to Messianic Judaism and you're like, wow, this is the authentic way. Now these guys are the true guys, man. Wow. And then to find out that these guys all along were just plain Jewish, essentially. Um, it's so easily you can easily, and I actually, by the way, I've seen this. I've seen people in this movement literally become atheists after their experience in Messianic Judaism. They
Yeah.
gave up on religion altogether. It's only a few people that I know that way, but it can easily happen. So I try not to meditate too much on stuff like that. I try to look, and Musar teaches me this, just look at things in a positive way. It was a learning curve and you learn. Um, and now you can meet people that are there. You can meet people who are coming out who are very, very angry at this point. They were already angry when they came out of the church, and you know this. The Messianic movement is just it's a mixed batch of angry people from different denominations.
Mm.
Um, and now with with this coming in light, and I think that's what's happening. I think people in the Messianic movement are really just afraid because they were already lied to. And I think we're dealing with a lot of emotions right now, with serious emotions right now. And I think this is the reason why you feel that backlash coming at you. There might be some essence of anti-Semitism there, but I think there's more fear than anything. Because again, they don't know now what's true. They thought once upon a time that Christianity was true. They really believed that Messianic Judaism was it. And now to find out that this is a lie too, like where do you go? So
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I think this it's really hard to decipher in the Messianic movement who really is anti-Semitic and who is just really acting out of emotions, is what I'm saying. And I think
Well,
there
and
might be
and you have the idol Jesus kind of in there too. So
right,
it's
right.
it's those two things plus the idol of Jesus. It's hard to give up the idol.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I try
Absolutely.
to have a holistic approach and, acknowledge that, I've had people who become atheists on my channel because, it's just dealing with the human emotion of
Right.
coming to terms with it was all a lie and it's a loss. And,
Right.
it's got to be okay to deal with those feelings and those emotions.
Right,
Um,
right. And there's got to be a place. And I really believe there's this, I really believe personally with all my heart and all my neshama that this is where people like yourself and others who are coming out of this to be that support, to be that team, to be that again, you need that because again, it's really emotionally can disturb you in so many different ways. And not just emotion, but spiritually as well.
yeah.
You find yourself that all your life you've been lied to, and now how do I know that you're leading in the right way? And that's kind of a little bit of what we got in here, to be honest with you. Initially, when we broke the news to people, I can see that in people. I can see the hopelessness in their face and fear more than anything, fear. So um, we really dealing with so many different different emotions, and yeah, the idol plays a role because all their life they've been told that if they don't accept this idol, they're going to perish in hell. So, that's still echoing in their minds. Even when they came to Messianic Judaism, that never went away. It was still
Yeah.
always embedded there. So now I think what's happening is that they actually have to face the reality that, hey, the man that you thought was going to save you is actually not going to save you. So there's a great
Right.
fear. There's a
Yeah.
great fear. And they're like, okay, you mean to tell me that I'm the one responsible?
Mhm.
You see, that's
Yeah.
and all your life you've been taught there's nothing that you can possibly do to save yourself.
Yeah.
So now you come
Well,
into
and to come to a place like within Judaism, uh, you know, we we elevate the Sadiq, the righteous person,
right,
right? I mean, the goal of Musar, is to become an ethical person. So I
absolutely,
mean, it's different. Salvation for the Christian is personal, whereas salvation for the Jewish national,
right,
right? It's a different concept.
absolutely.
I realize that we've been going for about 2 hours, so I
Oh
want to
wow,
kind
yeah,
of bring it down. I'm gonna have
yeah,
to break this into two different ones, which is fine.
right.
Um, I wanna leave it on this last kind of question and note. Um, so within Judaism, Jesus has no place, and
Right,
as far as history, he's a marginal Jew.
right.
Judaism has no place for a single rabbi. What do you make of the historical Jesus? Do you believe he is a person or a myth? And for you now in FOTW, what role does he play now?
Well, in FOTW, he actually plays a zero role for us right now. We tend not to look back anymore at that. We're looking forward. So for us here, he means nothing, absolutely nothing. And I can honestly say that for everybody in here because they have voiced that. Historically speaking, I'm really don't have a position on that. I mean, at one hand, he could have been a rabbi from the Galilee who, which by the way, historically speaking, many Jews were crucified. Jesus was not the only one, by the way.
Yeah.
And they were crucified for ideas that were conducive towards the Roman Empire being destroyed. The Zealots, for instance. So, he could have been a rabbi from the Galilee who had a decent following, and he was speaking terminologies that were really coming against the empire at that time, and for that he got crucified. And Rome then took his persona and made this new Jesus type of persona that we see today. There's that one option. Or he could have been really truly a false prophet, the false prophet of Deuteronomy 13, obviously. So it's kind of hard to pinpoint it. If you're basing it on the gospel, it's kind of hard because you see a Jesus who is pro-Torah, a Jesus who is just a man, who says the Father, all the prayers go to the Father. We see that element in some of the gospel, but then we see other elements of the gospel where he deifies himself and he makes himself co-equal. So it's kind of hard to decipher to the whole thing. Where I stand is, I really don't care because he means nothing anymore. You see what I mean? We here at FOTW, we waiting for the true Mashiach. You see? And what Jesus was, it really, for us, it doesn't matter because it's not going to change my position and where we're heading, is what I'm saying. Like if I were to find out tomorrow, hey, as it turns out, Jesus was real and he was a rabbi from the Galilee. Okay, that's not going to change my perspective. It's not going to change my relationship that I have with Judaism today. Or if I find out that, by the way, he really was teaching heretical stuff and he was making himself co-equal with God, and okay, then he's the prophet from Deuteronomy 13. Either way, doesn't make a change for us because we are embarking in a journey and we are in the emes right now. We're loving the Tanakh and we're waiting for the true Mashiach. And we understand that as part of being the nation right now, our role is to usher the Mashiach. As you probably know this, in every generation, the Mashiach could have came.
Yeah.
But Israel wasn't worthy. So why? Because sinat chinam, baseless hatred. So what I'm trying to focus here at FOTW is in character building. That's really the weight of our organization right now. Let's work on character building because this is one of the reasons why, again, Mashiach never came in the generation. He could have come in a generation. In every generation, there's an opportunity for Mashiach. As you know this, in Judaism, we teach this. So I want to, instead of looking so much at what Jesus probably is or isn't, I want to focus on ushering the true Mashiach. And here, that's our focus. Our focus is, let's get rid of baseless hatred. Let's get rid of, the bigotry and especially contention amongst brothers and sisters. And I got to level with you. People that come in here, I had Tobias Singer be here this summer. I had also Rabbi Pinchas Taylor from the Chabad and Plantation was here. Both of these rabbis gave us such a great, they were just like mamash tovim when they saw this place. Because they were like, wow, I've never seen a place where people actually get along this well. Outside of Judaism. Because in the shuls, people get along. We argue, but at the end of the day, we hug. But outside of that, as a matter of fact, this was such an impact for them that Rabbi Pinchas Taylor has an organization called the American Faith Coalition. It's called the AFC. We're a part of this coalition. Our picture is in the front of his website. Like that is the page, because this is ideally what he is trying to accomplish right now. So we're seeing that there's a change. Even Chabad, he's Chabad. And he's trying to introduce this to the Chabad, basically. So what we're doing here is not trying to, we do dig into the Divrei Torah. We do dig into the Shulchan Aruch. We do follow halacha. We're learning more halacha, where we fit in more in the halachic issues and whatnot. Those are good things, walking as a Jew, keeping kashrut, all these different things. But none of that matters if we hate each other. None of that matters if we're harboring hatred. I mean, this is basic 101 Judaism is what I'm saying, and I think that a lot of times, especially coming into Judaism, we can get so wrapped up with the mitzvot and, okay, how do I do this mitzvot? How do I do this mitzvot exactly? And we can just get so wrapped up, and it can be overwhelming. There's so much that we lose track of really what we should be doing at a basic level. I'm saying, as a shoresh, as a foundation. So for us today, we're not really preoccupied with Jesus. We're really just more preoccupied in how can we make an impact in Judaism? And what we're doing in here, I love it. You know, again, I converted Masorti, but I'm dealing with Orthodox right now.
Mm.
That's, you know, and our halacha is Orthodox for the most part. Um, and I mean, I got Rabbi Green. He's conservative. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to bring these rabbis together. You know, even in Judaism, there's a political issue, as you know. You know,
Yeah.
and I think that this is the area where we want to try to again unite, because you know, guess what? When a Nazi comes knocking on our door, he's not going to care whether you're a Masorti, whether you're Mizrahi, or whether you're Ashkenazi, or whether you're Sephardic.
Yeah.
You're a Jew at the end of the day. So our heart, it's more focused on that. We just really don't focus anymore on the past or on Jesus or what he was or what he could be or whatever case may be. We see a bigger picture here right now.
It's a beautiful thing. Sounds like you've had an amazing journey. I mean, it's been a blessing hearing your story.
Thank you.
All right. So any final words here for the audience? And
well, I just want to encourage the audience to really take the time to study. Number one, don't study by yourself. That can be dangerous. It's important for us to be objective when we come into the scriptures, be objective to it. And really take the time to really examine the Christian Bible versus the Tanakh. Judaism is a beautiful, beautiful walk. It is obviously the containment of the emissaries there, and I want to encourage everybody in the audience to really take that time to really explore. Because I will say this, I forgot to mention, I have people that are calling me from the other side of the country that I've never even heard of before. One of the things, because again, Jewish news is just going everywhere. So one of the things that I'm hearing that I thought is very interesting is that since people have come to this awakening, one thing that they say, and they all say the same thing, that they feel a load off their shoulders. They feel freedom. When they finally let go of Jesus, it was like,
yeah.
wow. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Like the hardest point is letting go, but once you let go, there's freedom. So I
Good,
would encourage everybody in your audience to trust in God at the end of the day, and to know that you're not alone in this. There's many of us who are coming to this awakening, and be a part of that prophecy of Zechariah 8:23, when 10 men from the nations will grab the cloak of a Jew and say, "We'll hear that God is with you." Be a part of that in these days, so that we can usher the true Mashiach.
And don't be afraid to let go of Jesus.
Oh, absolutely.
So you made a statement that about not studying alone. So that was something that Jehovah's Witnesses would say, is that you can't understand the truth on your own without the society.
Right.
When you say that, you're talking about the Tanakh within the Jewish community. What exactly are you saying? Because that can be misapplied, and so I want to situate that properly.
Absolutely. So, you know, when you said don't study it by yourself, it's going to be depending on the individual, number one. Your level of understanding of Tanakh, number one. If you're not very skilled in knowing Tanakh, my recommendation is that you will go obviously to a Jewish rabbi to help you kind of decipher a lot of these things in the Tanakh, because it's very, very important. Culture plays a huge role. Context plays a huge role. Language plays a huge role. So
somebody who speaks Hebrew fluently,
yeah. I mean, if you speak fluently Hebrew and you can read Hebrew fluently, by all means, all I would tell you is go back and read it in Hebrew. That's that. Very simple. But I suspect for the majority of the people, that's not the case. And that not being the case, it's always good to team up with somebody that has been doing this for a while, or a rabbi who obviously has been doing this all their life. But you want to definitely surround yourself with people who kind of know what they're doing. So yeah, it could be interpreted as, yeah, you don't want to just depend on somebody, but we're not asking you to go back to the church for this. We're not asking you to go back to the watchtower for this. We're asking you to come to Judaism for this. So, and that's really the case. It's where you're going to, and if you don't have the ability and the capability to do this by yourself. Because as we can see, the Bible can be interpreted in many different ways.
Yeah.
So,
Culture, context, and language is important in studying any text. The
absolutely
culture is the container of the traditions, the
right,
language. I mean, any language, the sages say to translate is to lie. That is why we study in Hebrew, so we can understand for ourselves.
right, right.
So, very important things. Well, this has been a very beneficial talk, and I'm thankful we got to do this and we got to touch on this. I like interviewing people who've had an interesting journey, a similar journey. Um, I felt like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. I had to try out a bunch of stuff before I found out where I was supposed to be.
Sure.
But my soul was always here, at the feet of Mount Sinai. Um,
Amen.
so it's been a blessing. And yeah, have a good night. And
Thank you for
Shavua
having me.
Tov and Shana Tova, since it's a new year.
Oh,
Mazel Tov for joining the family.
oh, for sure.
Um,
Thank you. Baruch haba. Baruch
so,
haba. And
all
I
right.
look forward to hopefully we can meet in person. And again, thank you for having me in here on the show. I look forward to more journeys because, as you know, Judaism is a journey. So we'll see where we're gonna land. We know we're gonna be in Judaism, but where now from here, where do we go? So
Yeah,
it's a good thing. It's a really, really good thing. And I'm looking forward
yeah.
to sharing that with you as I go along on my journey and to hear your journey as well, and where we are landing. So it'll be a good thing.
Well, sounds great. I'm glad we made this connection and onward